Today I am predicting the entire 2024 Cleveland Browns season. So first off, let's take a look at who they actually face. They do unfortunately have the third highest strength of schedule in the NFL, but I believe the reason for most of this is because of how good the AFC North is, as the Steelers and Bengals are ranked in the top 5 as well. But when you look at their out-of-division opponents, they play teams like the Dolphins, Chiefs, Eagles, and Cowboys, which are all very difficult games. But then they also play teams like the Commanders, Giants, and Raiders, which you would think are games the Browns would win, but with the Browns, you just truly never know. The Browns' schedule does unfortunately get hard at the wrong time, as the last 4 weeks, they play the Chiefs at home, the Bengals on the road, the Dolphins at home, and then the Ravens on the road to close the season. Because of how this schedule is put together, it is very important that the Browns get off to a hot start early in the season, so they can be in a position where if they only go say 2-2 or 1-3 the last 4 weeks, they will still be in a position for a playoff spot. So now I'm going to go game by game and let you guys know how I see this season going this year. Starting off in week 1, the Browns will get America's Game of the Week in Tom Brady's first career broadcasted game for Fox when they take on the Dallas Cowboys at home. Dallas is a very interesting week 1 for the Browns, and this game is essentially a toss-up, and I could see it going either way. However, the Browns were a very different team at home last year, especially on the defensive end, so I see the Browns using a very loud Cleveland Browns stadium to their advantage and getting a close week 1 victory over the Cowboys to get to 1-0 and start the season out very well. Next, they will travel to Jacksonville to take on the Jaguars. I expect in this one for the Browns to do exactly what they did to Trevor Lawrence last year and make him look like a fool. I think this will be a pretty close game, but I do think the Browns pulled away to start their season out 2-0 for the first time since 1993, which is absolutely crazy to think about, but I think the Browns not only do that, but they get off to a very hot start, as you will see coming ahead. These next 3 games mark the easiest part of the Browns' schedule, as in week 3, they will head back home to take on what is looking to be a bad New York Giants team. After they made the playoffs a few years ago, there were some expectations for this team, but ultimately, they are very held back by the QB play from Daniel Jones, and the Browns defense will absolutely embarrass him in what I expect to be a blowout home victory for the Browns to go 3-0. After that, they head on the road to take on the Raiders, which again, should be on paper an advantage for the Browns defense, as they will take on a very messy Raiders offense, which has a lot of question marks, although they got better as the year went on. I just do not see any team with bad QB play doing anything on the Browns defense this year. I expect another blowout here to move to 4-0. In week 5, the Browns will travel to Washington to take on the Commanders in what I think will be a close game, and I would honestly not be that surprised if the Commanders somehow got an upset, but with that being said, I think Jaden Daniels is just too young to take on a team like this, and I think his inexperience will end up costing them, and the Browns win a very close road game to move to a very good 5-0, which as I stated earlier, with the way the schedule is set up, is very important for them to do so. Heading into week 6, a lot of people will be very high on the Browns after their defense dominates on some poor QB play and Deshaun Watson finally starts to look like himself and the Browns offense is rolling. However, this is where I think they come back down to earth and they get blown out in Philly to a very good Eagles team who only got better this offseason, and the Browns get a hard reality check and suffer their first loss of the season, and people kind of take a step back on the Browns as they fall to 5-1. After a frustrating loss on the road to the Eagles, the Browns will head back home to take on the Bengals in a game that I could see go either way. I do think the Browns should win this game because they usually always dominate the Bengals, and especially being at home, but in the NFL, especially if you're the Browns, you always lose some games you're not supposed to. So I have the Browns taking their second straight loss here to the Bengals in a good game, but a game in the 30s where both offenses look very good. However, Bengals escape and the Browns fall to 5-2. After that, the schedule does not do them justice, and they take on the Ravens. However, they stay in Cleveland at home. With that being said, I think the Ravens will be too much for a Browns team, which will not be feeling very good after losing 2 straight and then now dropping a third. In a game I see them losing by around 6-7 and falling to a very unfortunate 5-3, dropping 3 straight, and now the whole league is questioning what happened to the Browns. After doing some serious soul-searching, the Browns played their 3rd straight home game, taking on the other Harbaugh when they play the LA Chargers at home. And although Justin Herbert is a very good QB who could give the Browns some problems, I do not think their roster and the talent around Herbert are good enough, and the Browns get a much-needed double-digit point victory to get back in the W column and advance to 6-3. After this win, the Browns will have their bye week in week 10, which is very important for a team that was absolutely derailed with injuries last year, and I am so much happier our bye is this late in the season, as last year, it was way too early, and I think that is part of the reason why they face so many injuries, and no team should have to go through that, and every team should have later byes like the Browns do this coming year. Coming off the bye and being very well rested, the Browns have another favorable matchup in week 11 when they head to New Orleans to take on a Saints team, which will most likely not be very good this year, so I see the Browns winning winning this one in fairly comfortable fashion to get to 7-3. The game after that is very interesting, as in week 12, they play their first primetime game of the year, as well as play their division rival the Steelers for the first time this season on a short week in their first of 2 Thursday night games, which I think is an absolutely awful rule now that teams can play more than one, but that's a whole nother subject. Browns-Steelers games are always very physical and get very intense, and I can't wait to see what happens when the two rivals collide this year. This time, even though it's not a short week, I think the Browns get the win here, mostly because they are at home, and I can see them winning a low-scoring 20-16 time game to advance to 8-3, picking up their third straight win, and more importantly, their first division win of the season. Now in week 13, the Browns are feeling good again, and they head to Denver to take on the Broncos on Monday Night Football, in a game which they will be playing on many days of rest in their second primetime game of the year. Denver is a very hard place to play, and the Browns just seem like they could never overcome the elevation and win there, but they are just the better team. And the Broncos have a rookie QB in Bo Nix, which I do not think fares well for them, and I think the Browns turn him over just enough and they get the win in a successful homecoming for Jerry Jeudy, who makes his return to Denver, and the Browns advance to 9-3. In week 14, the Browns head to Pittsburgh where they will play the Steelers for the second time in 3 weeks. However, they will of course be on the road this time, and I unfortunately see them falling here. The Browns can never sweep the Steelers, so based off of historical trends alone, the Browns are due for a loss here in a game which I see Russell Wilson adjusting to the Browns defense and lighting them up like he did last year when he was with the Broncos. It's also been forever since the Browns won a regular season game in Pittsburgh, so yeah, all signs point to the Browns taking a tough loss here and falling to 9-4. Then the Browns will head back home for an absolutely huge matchup in week 15 against the defending champion Chiefs and Travis Kelce's return to his hometown of Cleveland, Ohio. And much like I said, in the NFL, a team always loses a game they're not supposed to. They also always at least win one they're not supposed to. I see the Browns shocking the Chiefs here and getting a win in which Deshaun Watson gets revenge on Patrick Mahomes for the divisional loss a few years back. And I expect this one to be an incredible duel between the two, even in what could be a cold weather game. I think this will be a shootout, and the Browns get a shocking and much needed win here and get back on track the right way by spoiling Kelce's homecoming by advancing to 10-4. After that, they get a rematch with the Bengals, this time on the road, in which they will win because this Browns team would never get swept by the Bengals. So they win and advance to 11-4 on the year. Feeling good about a potential wildcard spot, likely even clinching it with that win, and still being in play for the division. However, I think those division hopes get shot down here with a loss to the Dolphins. I know this game will likely be played in freezing cold temperatures, which some people might think favors the Browns, but I've seen the Browns lose way too many cold weather games at home you thought would favor them, so that really doesn't even matter at this point. I think the Dolphins offense has too much speed, and their defense will be just enough for them to get the road win here in week 17 on Sunday Night Football, where the Browns fall to 11-5. Now in week 18, the Browns will have to travel to Baltimore for a divisional game against the Ravens, in which I think will not mean much for both teams, so we can expect to see the starters rest and a guy like Jameis Winston or DTR getting the start. But they're on the road, so I'll just give the Ravens the season sweep here, dropping the Browns to 11-6 for the second straight season. With that as well, the Browns will make the wildcard round for the second straight season, and hopefully this year, they do not get absolutely embarrassed and find a way to at least win one playoff game, and who knows, maybe make a run for it all. I think a lot of these games could go either way, but the Browns are a very talented team with a very good defense, the coach of the year, and an offense that could be great if we see Deshaun Watson play how we all know he can. That is why I see the Browns as an 11-win team, finishing above the Steelers and the Bengals, but still below the Ravens, ending up in a wildcard spot again. That's all I have for this video. Let me know what you guys thought about this one in the comments below, and if you enjoyed and haven't yet, please make sure to drop a like and subscribe because your support truly means the world. Also, follow me on Instagram, and until next time, I will see you all later.